The Government of Canada, with the support of all recognized parties in the House of Commons, will appoint the Honourable Marie-Josee Hogue, a judge of the Court of Appeal of Quebec, to lead a public inquiry established under the Inquiries Act. Justice Hogue will be tasked with examining and assessing interference by China, Russia, and other foreign states and non-state actors, including any potential impacts, to confirm the integrity of and impacts on the 2019 and 2021 general elections at the national and the electoral district levels. Le gouvernement du Canada, avec l'appui de
the Government of
tous les
Canada,
partis,
with the support of all
reconnu à la
parties,
Chambre des communes,
recognized in the House of
va nommer
Commons,
l'honorable Marie-Josee
will appoint
Hogue,
the Honourable
juge de
Marie-Josee
la Cour
Hogue,
d'appel du Québec,
a justice
afin
from
de
the
mener
Quebec
une
Court of
enquête
Appeal,
publique
to conduct a public
conformément
inquiry
à la loi
in
sur
accordance
les
with the
enquêtes.
Inquiries Act.
La juge Hogue aura pour tâche
Justice
d'examiner
Hogue
et évaluer
will have the mandate
l'ingérence de la
of
Chine,
investigating and
de la
examining
Russie
the
et d'autres
interference of China,
acteurs
Russia,
étatiques
and other
ou
state
non
actors
étatiques
or
étrangers,
non-state
ainsi que
actors
toute
that are foreign to
répercussion
Canada,
potentielle
as well as
de
any
cette
potential
ingérence,
repercussions
afin
of
de
that
confirmer
interference.
l'intégrité des
The aim is
élections
to confirm
générales
the
de
integrity
2019
of the
et
2019 and 2021
échéant,
general
les
elections,
répercussions sur
and,
celles-ci
if applicable,
à l'échelle
their
nationale
impacts
et à celle des
on a national
circonscriptions
level
aussi.
and on
Elle présentera
ridings as
un
well.
rapport intérimaire
She will present
d'ici le
an interim
29
report
février
by February 29th, 2024,
final
and then a final
d'ici le
report
31 décembre
by December 31st, 2024.
Justice Hogue will have full access to all relevant cabinet documents, as well as all other information she deems relevant for the purposes of her inquiry. In addition to examining and assessing interference by China, Russia, and other foreign state and non-state actors, Justice Hogue will also look at the flow of information to senior decision-makers, including elected officials. La juge Hogue aura tous les outils
Justice Hogue will have all the tools necessary to get to the bottom of the issues and suggest improvements such that we can strengthen our protection mechanisms and increase the resilience of our democratic institutions.
By thanking Justice Hogue for accepting to take on this important task. She will be able to undertake her important work with the full support of all recognized parties in the House of Commons. Je tiens d'ailleurs à aussi remercier les leaders
I would also like to thank the leaders of the opposition parties in the House for their cooperation throughout this process.
Our work together sends a clear signal to Canadians that democratic institutions are strong and are resilient. And I'm now obviously very happy to take all your questions.
Dans votre communiqué, M. LeBlanc, vous parlez clairement, elle pourrait présenter un rapport classifié.
You said that she could present a classified report that would be considered classified. So how public will this inquiry be if we're already talking about classified reports? Well, I think it's important to note that the terms of reference that have been established for the inquiry that I just announced, all of the words in the terms of reference were unanimously supported by the opposition parties. I think that is crucial in order to give confidence that there isn't something in the terms of reference that might be abnormal or that is preferred by the government. The opposition parties have agreed with all of the words and articles in the terms of reference. However, and the opposition parties understand that the Information Protection Act obviously applies to a process such as an inquiry. This is why Justice Hogue will have at her discretion the capacity to be in closed chambers to examine the most sensitive information, and that she will act independently to produce a report for Canadians. She has all of the independence required to reach her conclusions. Obviously, the government will ensure that she has access to all required documents. The deadlines are quite tight. You're talking about an interim report in February and then final report by the end of December 2024. Why so quick? Do you want it to be ready before the next elections? We do understand the importance of going quickly and swiftly. Justice Hogue obviously agreed with the deadlines set. This was discussed with the Privy Council and herself. I believe that we understand how important it is to assure Canadians that our democratic institutions are healthy, resilient, and that there are measures in place to protect against foreign interference. That does not mean that we should delay. I understand your questions. I understand if we had put the date after potential elections. We want the work to be done, well done, to be rigorous, and we know that Justice Hogue will do exactly that. But obviously, wherever possible, we are seeking to deliver an interim and final report to Canadians as quickly as possible. But really, it is Justice Hogue who will determine how she proceeds.
Does she have the power to push back the timelines? Can she say to you, I need more time for the first report? I mean, you've said it as February 29th. As Commissioner, will she have the power to move the timelines if she judges she needs more time?
Well, obviously, on the day we announced the establishment of an independent commission of inquiry, I'm not going to purport to speak for what the Commissioner may or may not decide at some point. The Commissioner has agreed to the terms of reference, including the deadlines that are set. I assume that in previous commissions, if in her judgment she wants to ask for an extension of time, that would be very much up to her. I'm confident that we can achieve the interim report and the final report. The Commission can achieve, and we can receive the interim report and the final report in the timelines that the orders in Council set out. And again, all of the opposition parties are firmly and completely in agreement with all of those deadlines. So I think that's important to give people the assurance that we worked on this in a rigorous, serious way. We arrived not at a consensus, but at a unanimous agreement on all of those details. And frankly, we look forward to Justice Hogue setting up the Commission of Inquiry and beginning this work.
How much of this will be in public? Who put Hogue's name forward?
The process to find the appropriate justice goes following a protocol that was established with the Canadian Judicial Council, I think in 2010 in Mr. Harper's government. The government doesn't pick up the phone and call sitting justices to ask what their plans are over the next 18 months. That's not how this process works. We follow the protocol where the chief justices of the relevant courts are consulted. I had a number of conversations over the summer with Chief Justice Wagner, the Chief Justice of Canada. I was very grateful for his advice, his guidance. I shared that advice and guidance with my opposition colleagues. So we think we have arrived with the full support of the opposition at the best person to lead this inquiry. Justice Hogue came to us highly recommended by other jurists. Obviously, her Chief Justice, the Chief Justice of Quebec, was very supportive. So we look forward to this work commencing as quickly as she can get the commission up and running.
How much will be in public? How much of this inquiry will be in public?
Again, Justice Hogue will decide that. That's what an independent inquiry does. She will decide what particular matters she will hear in camera, what will be public hearings. You'll notice that one of the things that we all thought, the opposition parties and the government, important is that the Commission begin by public hearings so that Canadians will understand why certain highly classified intelligence information has to be treated by law in a confidential manner. The Commission has all of the powers in order to study that information in the appropriate way. and she will, in her judgment, based on the legal advice that the Commission would receive from the Commission lawyers that she will select in her independent way, decide how and what hearings will be made public. So the government is dictating none of that. Justice Hogue will make those decisions, but like all previous inquiries, it'll be done following the law in Canada.
Minister LeBlanc, we know that a lot of interference happens before the writ is dropped. Will this inquiry take a look at what happens in the party nomination process?
Again, the terms of reference were deliberately written to give the inquiry and the commissioner the ability to follow the evidence. That's what an independent judicial inquiry does. So I wouldn't presuppose where Justice Hogue will decide to examine foreign interference activities. We want the inquiry to focus on foreign interference activities in the federal democratic institutions. And she will have all of the flexibility to examine all of these issues and make whatever recommendations she thinks is appropriate.
Mettre en place ces recommandations-là pour toutes les recommandations qu'elle va vous faire.
All the recommendations made will be put in place in time for the next election. I've already said here at the podium that I am giving confidence in the government. We don't know. We're in a minority parliament, and that's a good question to ask to our opposition colleagues. We think it's important to move forward in an expedited fashion. This is why Justice Hogue has agreed to the terms of reference that we revealed today with the agreement of the opposition parties. We're eager to see her recommendations. We believe that she can truly give our government and future government suggestions that will further strengthen the measures that we have implemented since 2015 and that we then increased and refined since we formed government. But I said 10 minutes ago that the inquiry will take place, and at this point I can't presuppose what her recommendations might be. But I'm eager to see the process, which is important.
Experience? Does Justice Hogue have any national security experience?
Justice Hogue is a senior judge of one of Canada's most senior courts. The Quebec Court of Appeal, like the Ontario Court of Appeal, are very influential and important courts in terms of establishing precedents in Canadian law. She is a fluently bilingual senior jurist. We had worked with the opposition parties to identify criteria that we commonly believe would be important for a presiding officer of the inquiry. Obviously, the ability to conduct the hearings in a fluently bilingual fashion was important. We believe Justice Hogue has all of the necessary experience, credentials, and judgment to lead this important work. That view was shared by some of the country's most senior jurists with whom we've spoken. And some of them have suggested that there is value also in finding a senior credible justice who comes to this issue with a fresh set of eyes, without a series of detailed experiences in this very space. Justice Hogue will not be reviewing particular items that she may have decided as a justice, for example, in the designated list of federal court justices who are regularly involved in some of these very issues. So one of the interesting pieces of advice that we got from senior jurists is that there perhaps is merit to having somebody come to this important undertaking with a fresh perspective, and obviously in her independent judgment, the ability to retain whatever experts, whatever counsel she believes is necessary for the Commission to do its work properly.
Why was the decision made to broaden the scope of the inquiry, to not focus exclusively on China, but to look at other actors?
I'm sorry?
Why was the decision made to broaden the scope of the inquiry, to not look specifically at China or exclusively at China, but to look at other actors as well?
So we have said since we formed the government that foreign interference in Canadian democratic institutions is unacceptable. We have put in place, and you've heard me in the House of Commons, and you may hear me again in the coming weeks, remind you of the important measures we stood up. But we have also acknowledged that China is not the only foreign actor that seeks to undermine democratic institutions in Canada or other Western democracies. This challenge is not unique to Canada. I had a conversation in June with the responsible British minister who talked to me about some of the very challenges they're having. So this is a global challenge for democracies. China is not the only country that seeks to interfere in an inappropriate way. And we wanted the Commission and Justice Hogue to have the ability to follow the evidence, to, as she is brought up to date by our intelligence agencies, as she hears from witnesses, as she discovers that other countries beyond China are also seeking to undermine democratic institutions in Canada and around the world, that she be free to follow that evidence. So we did not want to restrict it to one country alone, and we specifically said in those terms of reference that were agreed to, again, by all of the opposition parties, China, Russia, other state actors and non-state actors, because some of the interference may be by non-state actors that are affiliated with some of these regimes in various ways. So we wanted her to have the independent judgment to follow the evidence and to give Canadians the benefit of her conclusions.
This process took forever, Minister. Are you considering any changes to the Inquiries Act?
Rafi?
Are the Cabinet and Prime Minister willing to publicly testify?
But again, Justice Hogue hasn't prepared a witness list. We saw with Justice Rouleau's inquiry at one point the Justice and the Commission Council prepare a list of potential witnesses. And obviously, we as a government will want to be present and available as she does her work. So I would not imagine that I or my colleagues or senior officials would want anything but to be available and forthcoming with Justice Hogue, should she decide that we can provide some relevant information. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you all in 10 days. Merci beaucoup.
All right. We have just been listening to the Minister of Public Safety and Democratic Institutions, Dominic LeBlanc, make an announcement about the new lead on an inquiry into election interference in this country. And he announced today the appointment of Quebec Court of Appeal Justice Marie-Josee Hogue. He said that the scope of this investigation will be broad. They will be looking at China, Russia, and other non-state actors and whatever interference may have gone on